Welcome to Signs of Life, exploring survival of consciousness. Brought to you by Forever Family Foundation. On the web at foreverfamilyfoundation.org.
I call your name. The echo is haunting. The echo is always the same. I call your name. The echo is haunting. An echo can never be changed. So I call your name. Your name.
Welcome everyone to Forever Family Foundation's radio show. This is a show that is designed for you to tell your own personal stories and to listen to those of others. Many of us have had experiences that definitely do not go along with mainstream thinking, and we're not always comfortable telling our stories just anywhere. But here on this show, you will have listeners who have had similar experiences and are very anxious to hear your stories. I'm Betty Kovacs. Kim Savader, the Kumlock Center, usually introduces our show, but she's unable to be here this evening. However, she will be here next month. So it will be Janet Mayer and myself tonight. Janet Mayer is a Forever Family Foundation certified medium and author of Spirits, They Are Present. And anyone who has talked very much with Janet knows she knows they're present. And it's a wonderful book. However, I also want to add that she is a certified medium, but this show does not involve mediumship. It's a show about your own direct experiences. And I am the author of Miracle of Death, There Is Nothing But Life, and Merchants of Light, the Consciousness That Is Changing the World. So let's hear your stories and together think about what these stories might mean and how we could integrate such experiences into our everyday lives and change our culture. So I will give you the numbers that you can call. The first one, there are two of them. The first one is 888-627-6008. Once again, 888-627-6008. Or you can also call this one, 323-744-4831. Once again, 323-744-4831. So, while we wait for our callers, for our first caller, I'm wondering, Janet, do you have anything that you want to begin with?
Well, I would just like to say good evening to you, Betty. It's nice to always see you or hear you every month and talk to you.
You too.
We actually do have a caller in, Betty, right away. So why don't we go right to Ed from Florida, who's on line 1. So Ed, do you hear us?
I can.
Okay, well, welcome, Ed, and good evening. And we wanted to know if you would like to share a story.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a story, but I've had a significant loss in the last several years and been involved with Forever Family. It's been very helpful. I visited several different mediums over the years, and but in recent travels, I happened to see a show, a talk show. It happened to be in London, England, of all places. We have family over there, and they were interviewing an eminent scientist, and his name escapes me, but it happened to be Piers Morgan who was interviewing this fellow. And Piers Morgan, for whatever it's worth, is a very devout, happens to be devout Catholic, and he was questioning this particular guy about, and again, he's an eminent scientist, about his feelings about death, the afterlife, and so forth and so on, and this eminent scientist went on and on about it, the scientific, his view as a scientist, which was totally contrary to what Piers Morgan felt, and it was rather deflating to listen to him and particularly with the experiences I've had over the past with mediums and so forth. So I just wondered how you can square with people like this that have totally contrary views to the afterlife and so forth and so on. Something I wrestle with all the time, and it's a tough issue. I just wonder what your thoughts are.
Could I answer that first?
Sure.
Yeah, that's something that has plagued me most of my academic career, because those are so many of the people that, of course, I worked with every day. Scientists who still were captured, you might say, caught in the old worldview of a material scientist, of a material science, I should say. And it was deeply disturbing to me for a long time, because before I'd had any experiences of my own, I wondered, could that be true? Could that emptiness of no meaning, no purpose, nothing but matter, and when we're dead, could that really be true? And it wasn't until our son, our only child, was killed in an accident. And as a matter of fact, my mother, the year before that, was killed in a car accident. And then 2 years later, my husband was killed in a car accident. But before my husband was killed, he and I had experiences with our son, with his consciousness. And it was so profound that I never doubted it again after a series of experiences with him. I had to get over my university left brain training. When I had the visions, I knew absolutely that I was with him, and it's true. But when I was out of the vision, my left brain would pounce on it, and in that old kind of way of the scientist you listen to see how it could be destroyed, because after all, there was nothing but. But I knew that it is experience itself with the other world, and it sounds as though you've had those experiences. That's how we know. And when scientists speak, and usually in their rather often very grand and definite way that they know, but they really don't have, or didn't have until quantum physics, any way of exploring other dimensions of reality, because they said there were none. Now with quantum physics, the story has changed, and some quantum physicists have actually experienced that other dimension, and they really know. But even those who have not had the inner experience of the other dimension, they see now from quantum physics that other dimensions do in fact exist. So the old science is negated by quantum physics.
Can you just expand a little more on I'm not terribly familiar with quantum physics, but the concept there of how that's taken it to a different dimension?
I'm certainly not, I don't know much either, if any real thing about quantum physics, except what I am told by quantum physicists. I've read them.
Oh, okay. I don't know much about it.
Yeah, they've been very helpful to me. But for instance, if one of the things that helped me was that if two particles are connected ever, they never separate. Wherever in the universe they are together. Mm-hmm. And when I had the experience with our son, I knew that. I knew, it's like I was remembering that that's right. There can be no separation. The way the mystic expresses that is that when you love, you're connected by love. You're never, ever separated. Love connects and it never separates. But that was just one little thing that quantum physicists talk about the universe. But they say, yes, there are other dimensions. And they say they know that our consciousness has access to those dimensions. In fact, Jude Currivan, who's a cosmologist and quantum physicist, has said, we now know that human beings are a manifestation of that universal mind, that vast cosmic intelligence. We are a manifestation of it, and we are co-creators with it.
I lost my son as well as a young fellow, only 39, and it's been 6 years, and I can honestly say that I haven't and maybe I just have a mental block. I don't quite understand it, but I've been to several Forever Family retreats and with my wife, and visited with a number of mediums over the years, but I just haven't been able to connect over 6 years. And I just can't understand it.
That's so many people I meet have said that. And I think we have to be easy on ourselves, because we are living in a world, in an environment that for hundreds of years we have been told that when we are dead, we're dead. There's nothing else. And whatever you think you're getting in touch with, you're not, because this has not only wounded us deeply, but it had also brought about a negative frequency that makes it difficult for us to get through. I think, or for the other ones to get through. Now, there are those who do have those experiences. And I think there are various methods that can help us do it. Some people, like Janet, are naturally talented in this way. I think we all have that ability, but we need to develop it, and our culture has not been conducive to developing it. But I think that one of the most important things for any civilization to call itself a civilization is that it has to know and make known the reality of these dimensions, and also work on triggers that can help us after going through this horrible nightmare of sleep. How can it help us to get in touch with that other dimension? We hear stories all the time about people from the other side trying to get in touch. And I had an experience with my son in which he showed the pollution around the earth. And he said, that's not just physical pollution. That's spiritual pollution that makes it hard to get through, because there's a belief that there's nothing to get through.
Can I just ask you real quick, and I don't want to take a lot of time, other people's time, but how long after the loss of your son did you have the first connection? Just, was it immediate, or did it take some time? Or
well, I had 2 years of dreams that he was going to die. He himself had one at 12, and also in the year that he was killed in a car accident. And my husband had a vision 2 weeks before. I think this kind of emotionally helped us on an unconscious level to get through it. But even in the hospital, when we were told by the doctor that he might not make it within that hour, but they were doing whatever they could. And I thought, my husband was always a strong one, but in this case, I took hold of his hand, and I could just almost feel this current going through him. And I became the strong one, strangely, and said, Istvan, if we're called to do this, we can do it. But during that time, he had the second, actually, vision. The one was 2 weeks before he died, seeing that he was going to be killed in a car accident, but he forgot it until we got the call. But during that hour, he did experience Pishti, our son, and it was just such. So that was just before he died, actually. Then afterwards, it was after the memorial. But I have to tell you this, to be entirely fair about this, because I had sought this all my life. My husband hadn't. But I also had been to Peru, had worked with shamans, and had learned some things that helped me to meditate or make contact with ritual and music and dance even. And also I worked with a shamanic, sacred medicine. So that, while we haven't known too much about it in the West or have misunderstood it, that did open a way for our son to come through. That was a powerful opener. And but it was the day after his memorial, 1 week after that, after his death. But, it varies with everybody. It just varies. Some people don't have a contact until 20 years, and then it totally changes their lives. But Janet,
has it changed over time? Has it changed over time for you, or does time make any difference?
It has. It was very intense for the year after our son's death, the 2 years, And then my husband was killed in an accident, in a car accident in his country. He'd gone to visit his parents in Hungary, or his mother. And then there were visions with him. But after that, it was much less. It was as though they were intensely with me for a while and wanted me to understand. And then it was much, much less. Yeah. I mean, I feel their presence, but I don't have those kinds of visions much at all.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Well, Jen might want to say something to you before you leave, Ed.
Yeah, I would. I just have a couple little things I'd like to add. And one is, as far as a loved one coming to you, there is no time stamp that it isn't going to be necessarily in that first year or that first month. Or, my grandmother came to me. She passed when I was young, and she came to me like over 20 years later. And it was so clear that, to this day, I could still describe a lot of what happened when I had that vision. So as far as you thinking, oh, well, it's been too late, or my son won't, appear to me, or, I don't agree with that. I think that, in my case, she came to me and it was sort of to give me a heads up or a warning about something. And sometimes I think that they kind of just watch you, or they're around you as you're moving through life and moving through grief, because you have to go through it in your own way. And there is no one person that can say, this is the exact way you need to grieve. Everyone grieves differently. And, he, may have dropped in around you, may not have, I don't know. But the thing is that he could show up to you at any time. And it may be when, you really need it. And you're thinking at the time, well, I really need it now. Well, it doesn't always work that way. And so they do come to you, our loved ones, they come through in really interesting ways, and they come through in their own way. And, and as far as like when, you were listening to that show, it works on both sides, whether you have somebody who's really religious and says, well, that can't happen. I'm sure that's not going to happen. This is what you have to believe. Well, I was raised a certain way. I was raised Catholic, and I had all these things happening, and I couldn't put it in a box. There was nobody to say, well, no, it doesn't happen that way. And I'm like, well, it's happening. It's happening. I don't know what to tell you. I am seeing spirits, so it's kind of like, you can go by how you were raised, what you believed in, but you still have to keep that door open to what can happen around you, or what is going on differently that maybe you might have always believed, and you think, well, I don't know if I really believe all this. It's like, okay, there's a lot happening out there that we have no idea. There's a ton of things that happen that, I have no idea. But if I'm having these experiences and I know and I see them and I feel them and I have felt them and I've experienced them, there isn't one person on this planet that can tell me it didn't happen, because I know for a fact in my life it did. So it kind of comes down to, you simply accepting, okay, I know my son has passed, but he's still with you and he's still around you in some form, in some way. And that when the time is right, you'll experience it. And you can come up with, 20 different ways of how you think it might happen, and it won't be that way at all. So you need to just give yourself a break too, and just say, I know he's there. I know he hears me. And I don't have to understand it. I don't have to either recognize it, but, it's there. So, that's how I look at it. And I look at it like, grief is always in the present. It's not the past. It's always in the present. And so are our loved ones. Our loved ones are always in the present. So they are still here with us. They are still existing on a different level because they're not physical. But at the same time, they give us subtle signs. And if we just are open to it and just say, I don't understand it, but I'm going to be open, because I don't know how many times when I was younger, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to let it go. I know what I saw, but nobody knows about this, or, the people I tell, they're like, oh, okay, sure. And as it kept happening, I think I changed the minds around me as well. And people are like, there is more going on. So I think if you just stay open and you don't let the outside world of different people who, you may have really enjoyed listening to, you don't have to agree or listen, believe everything they say either. They don't know it. They may not have had those experiences. They may not have had the losses that you have had, and they wouldn't understand where that comes from. So keep that in mind too, that, don't judge, just simply kind of accept and say, I know I'm going to stay open to it, and we'll see what happens. Okay?
I just want to relate one further experience to you. It was only months after our loss. My wife and I went to a Forever Family event. It was one that was in Long Island. It was late in the fall. It was in October.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nasty, rainy day. We drove down. It was a hotel ballroom. And I think, is Laura Lynn Jackson, is that her last name? Is it Jackson? Laura Lynn?
Yeah, Laura Lynn.
Yeah, so she happened to be there. And, she came out. Bob Ginsberg introduced her, and she talked a bit. And then she started to circulate around the room. And there were several hundred people. It was a huge room. And we were sitting at a table with people we really didn't know. And my wife and I, it had only been a matter of months. We were literally in shock because it was such a sudden event for us. And as Laura Lynn circulated, she started at the other end of the room, and, we could just hear her because she had the microphone. We couldn't even see her. And she eventually came to our table, and she stopped, and she engaged my wife and I, and it was mind-boggling. I mean, literally mind-boggling. She knew my son's name. She knew so much about him. I mean, I was literally stunned, and it was beyond belief. In fact, my wife and I felt guilty because she engaged with us for so long. I mean, it might have gone on for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And long and short of it was, there was a fellow there who was with her, and he was doing a documentary with Netflix. You may know the one.
Yeah, the surviving.
Life After Death.
Yeah. Life After
with
Death.
the gal up in Boston. What's her name? Leslie Keane?
Yes, Leslie Keane.
Okay. So, 4 years passed, and I happened to be in London, England, and I'm watching this documentary, and this fellow that is there with Leslie Keane, I tracked him down on the internet, and because he lived up near where we used to live in New England, and I eventually crossed paths with him. Just, let's get together and have, just breakfast. And as he didn't know me, I didn't know him. And as we were waiting for him, he got out of the car at a local restaurant, and he saw my wife and I, and he recognized us from that meeting with Laura Lynn 4.5 years ago. And he said, I had a premonition when you contacted me out of the blue. He didn't even know who I was, what my name was, or anything. He said, I had a premonition that you were that couple in that ballroom that day.
Wow.
And that was 4.5 years later. I mean, it just boggled my mind. But
yeah, and that's the way it works.
But going forward, we've met with other mediums, very high qualified mediums like yourself, from Forever Family, but we've never had anything close to that encounter we had that particular day. And I'm just wondering why that was, because I remember Laura Lynn saying your son has so much energy. He wants to get through to you. He wants you to know this. He wants you to know that. But we've never had anything close since, and I can't really square why that was such a dynamic meeting with her. And then ever since then, it just there hasn't been that kind of energy or connection. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Is that is that on his part because he's not, he's just moved on, or?
No, I think part of it, well, first of all, Laura Lynn Jackson is fabulous. She's an excellent medium. And like you said, anyone who, sees her in action is pretty much, awestruck. She's just fabulous. And second of all, I'm thinking that part of what is going on is, you're searching and going to other mediums, and maybe you're supposed to also be open and have your own connection with him in your own way, and instead of it being, I'm going to go to them and see what they can give me about my son. Maybe he's saying, I'm not coming through as much because now you have to do the work. You have to try to connect in your own way and see what comes through as well. And, I could be off on that. But, and I mean, I'm not saying you don't have to, check out other mediums, but I think part of it too is that in the show is one thing about it is everybody has their own connection, and that you have, you receive the dreams, you ask them, say, okay, you came through and gave me all this. I'm not going to go looking for it. I'm going to simply open up and accept whatever you start showing me, and then see what comes through, and you might have to give it a little time. But I think that when we're, everybody does it individually, they are open because they know how you work. And it's like, they can keep going through, medium after medium after medium. And each medium is going to come through in their own way with how they perceive, your son. So it could be different each time, but you also have to be open to, finding it within yourself to be open to see what comes through. And you can, I'm not saying going out and looking for every little thing, but being open to something. And if something comes through and it just feels a little different and you're like, it kind of feels like him, then simply accept it and say, okay, I heard you. I know you came through. Keep it coming, because then you're opening that door for him to come through more.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
No, I know. I guess I thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for calling in. We appreciate it.
Yes, we do, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Betty, we have another caller. Are you ready for the next caller? Rose, are you there from New York? Okay. I'm not sure. I guess we lost Rose. Okay. Looks like we might have lost her. She wants to call back, Rose. We're right here. Give us a buzz. Yeah, I mean, Betty, I think that, that's a big thing too is, when, I mean, and Laura Lynn, she's excellent. And I can only imagine the reading she gave him. And the thing is I think about that and I'm like, he felt that. He felt that from her. He knew that, his son was coming through. And I think that, you want that. You want that more. And I could totally understand that. And I also want those people to, remember to try to have their own personal relationship with their loved one in their own way, whether it's through a dream or, some kind of vision, or, you feel touched by them, or you see a sign, and that's what I love. I mean, I get, I still have sometimes some really strange things that happen, and I just have to stop, and I find myself almost, giggling, and, it might be in a time where I'm really upset about something, and, with grieving someone, and yet it's like they made me laugh, and I think, okay, yeah, they know me, they know, who I am. And so I love that part about it.
Yes. And I think it can be very subtle. I mean, with Laura Lynn, you can just get blown away. It's so fantastic,
Right.
But I think that we all have that ability, and it's our heritage to communicate with those who have stepped back into the spirit dimension. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's like learning a new language sometimes. I mean, sometimes it comes through very clearly, but at other times, I think what you're saying too, it can be very subtle. It can be just a slight feeling like, could it be, or what is that? And as you always say, Janet, it's to pay attention, to make that space in ourselves, just make the space, the time, the openness in ourselves to say, yes, that is something, and I want to just be open to receive whatever it is that comes through. And I was going to, I hope if that is still on, it's, I remember reading something by Jung, in which he said that he had to allow the images that were buried in the emotions to emerge so that he could see them, experience them, feel them. And if he had not allowed those images to emerge out of this profound emotion, the emotions might have torn him to pieces.
Wow. Right.
And I was thinking, I realized when I was looking at Miracle of Death to see what I might say, if there was a space, I had forgotten some of the things that I had there, because I remember, or I read this afternoon, that I was feeling desperate one time, and I had this feeling of presences around me. And fine as I just sat there and paid attention and tried to let these images come through. What is this energy? And I could see an image of elders or ancestors sitting in a circle around me, meditating. And what they were doing is focusing on these emotions, which were ripping me apart, and sort of pulling the images out of them.
Right.
And I found that, those images that came, first of all, simply that image of being surrounded by elders who cared and who were working with me to heal me and allow the emotions to speak in images to me so that they could heal me. And what I is, do we have people coming in?
We actually have a couple callers.
Okay,
hold on to your thought. Okay, we have a Marlene from Boston. Are you there, Marlene?
Yes, I am.
Hi. Did you want to share a story or something, a personal experience?
Yes, I've actually been wanting to tell someone, but I didn't dare tell my friends. My partner, we were soulmates. We were definitely soulmates. Passed in 2020, and through the years, I have sent him like text messages, crying and saying, "Please send me a sign," and do you still love me, and that kind of thing. Do you remember me? Are you still present? And then I'd wake up the next day, and my text message would be surrounded with hearts. And that happened twice. And then I heard nothing for many, many years. Well, not many years, but a long time, over a year. And then just last Saturday night, I was texting him again, because I was just grief-stricken. I haven't recovered, and I never will. But and saying the same thing, can you send me an unmistakable sign, please? And then the next day I went to check my text messages, and they were all gone except for one. That was, I wrote to him in 2021, a year after he passed, and at the bottom it said read. So he had read my text message.
Wow.
And then, so that was in the morning, and that I noticed that. And then in the afternoon, I came. I was out taking a walk, and I came back in, and I saw I had these, those flexible exercise bands, those, that you exercise with. It's like a scarf, anyway. And I walked in, and it was hanging over a doorknob, and it was waving in the breeze, like really, like as if there was a big gust of wind. And the windows were closed. There was no anything, but I'm really grateful because that was so. I asked for unmistakable signs, and he gave me several, and I don't know.
Doesn't it make you feel wonderful? Doesn't it feel wonderful that you received something?
Yeah, but then I keep thinking, were my eyes playing tricks? I don't hallucinate, so I'm second guessing. But also in the past, I remember renting a car and getting into the car and turning on the ignition, and my partner was a singer in a rock band, and his voice came streaming through the. He was singing to me. When I turned on the ignition, one of his songs was playing, but it's not the kind of song that got played on the radio. It was a personal love song to me that he had written. So I don't know. I'm just blessed with.
I think that's wonderful. And that can happen where they come through, a radio. I've done EVP work, and they will come through the computer and speak. And so, coming through a radio, that would not surprise me. And if he is a singer, then that would be a perfect sign for you. And it's, a song for you specifically. And, I can understand when you said that a lot of times you second guess. Well, everybody does, because everybody was the way they were raised to believe that, this couldn't be possible. But when you actually are open and you ask for signs and you receive them, you have to simply say, okay, thank you. What a beautiful sign for you to receive that.
And quite phenomenal.
Right.
Yeah, I just, when I saw that flapping in the wind, and then it happened for like a number of seconds, and then it stopped, and I kind of like came out of a trance kind of thing. And I just said, "Oh, hi, honey. Thank you so much." I was so grateful and so happy.
Well, it's interesting how the impossible can be possible, and we have to be grateful for it for sure.
That's right.
I'm part of your visionaries group, by the way. Your visionaries group. I'm part of that.
Wonderful. Yes, yes. Oh, I'm great. I'm glad you came. That's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for calling in.
Yes,
thanks so much.
Stories. That's beautiful and encouraging for others.
Yeah,
I love it is. Yeah, thank you. Those are great stories, and they're wonderful validations that our loved ones, that your loved ones are still around you. And I think that's what this whole show is about: is that these shared experiences remind everyone that we all have these, deep inner, things that are happening around us with, our loved ones that are giving us signs and letting us know. And we actually, we have another caller that
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were still on. I thought you got off. I'm sorry. I apologize, Marlene.
No.
I thought you
Bye-bye.
hung up.
No. I should let someone else take their turn.
Well,
okay?
no, but thank you for calling in.
Yes, it's wonderful and encouraging for sure. Very encouraging.
No kidding.
Okay. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, cut her off. I thought she hung up, and I was just adding something to it. But I wanted to go ahead and, if it's okay, our next caller is Jay from Georgia. Are you there, Jay?
I'm here.
Oh, good.
Did you have a story you would like to share?
Yeah, I think so. I've always been very, very analytical, and we were never supposed. My wife and I, we've been married almost 30 years now. We weren't supposed to have children, and now we have 4. And
oh goodness.
So going back to 2008, when our youngest was born, my wife, her mother was sick and fell ill, and we were getting ready to. We were packing up to. We were living in Pennsylvania at the time. We were packing up to go down to see her before she passed. And while we were packing, I was packing up the car, and I looked up in a window of our townhouse, and I just saw the reflection of the sun, but it was just this overwhelming sense of calm that came upon me. It was indescribable. And as we were driving from Pennsylvania to Mobile, Alabama, her mother passed. And so when we got there, she was pregnant. She was like 8 months pregnant or something, 7 months pregnant. And she was driving and, frantic, as you can imagine, but I was just remarkably calm. And when we got there, I was so calm that I've always felt guilty about not being emotional when people pass. But I was so calm that they asked me to deliver the eulogy because I was so composed, and I felt kind of guilty in the back of my mind for doing it, but I was able to do it. So fast forward, we moved down to Georgia, and our oldest son got married, and they were giving us our first grandchild. And back in September of 2022, he was born on September 12th. So on September 9th, I've always watched for some reason, watched for vanity license plates. They've always intrigued me, and I got one of my own. So I don't know if it's like, when you buy a car, you always see the same car on the road. I just happen to see a lot of vanity plates. But September 8th of 2022, I saw a vanity plate, and I take pictures of them. So 4 days before our grandson was born, I saw one that said Best Life, BSTLIFE. And that same day when I got home from work, we were trying to decide what we wanted to be called, how our son asked us to be called. And I saw a plate that said Go Graham, and my wife was, I didn't say anything to her, but she settled on Grammy. And that's what my mother was called. And then September 12th, the day he was born, on my drive home, the first day I'm Pops, the first day that I drove home as Pops, I saw a vanity plate called Favored One, FAVORD 1. And then, not a vanity plate, but on September 16th, 4 days after he was born, I pulled up at work and I stepped out of my car in this industrial park, and there was a dirty diaper sitting on the floor, on the ground. It's not a vanity plate, but that's the day I got fired from that job for various reasons, among them trying to hold people accountable for their actions. But I got fired. This is going to get, and I shared this with a lot of people, but Monday, November 14th, it was my first day at my new job, and I saw a vanity plate that said One Signs.
Oh.
Signs.
That's
and
cool.
Then November 13th, I saw a vanity plate, and it was MCMXCI, which is 1991 in Roman numerals.
Okay.
Which comes later on, Saturday, November 19th, the day my mom passed. The day my mom passed, I saw a vanity plate, L1NDA, Linda. Linda was the name of my wife's mother, my mother-in-law that passed in 2008, when I felt that overwhelming sense of calm. The day my mom passed, I saw a vanity plate with her name on it.
Wow.
That was crazy. But so when we went up to, my mother was cremated, we went up to the memorial service in December, and I was talking to my father, and I always thought it was weird what the 1991 was. But if you convert that to military time, it's 2031. And as I was talking to my father, that was, he had said he had called the hospice. He found my mother had passed, and he had called the hospice nurse at 8:30 at night for her to come.
Wow.
So right around 2031. And
right.
I guess, I just finished Laura Lynn's book, Signs. And she talks about how vanity plates are easy for the other side to make contact. But I had always, like I said, I was always very analytical, and just the sheer odds, the plausibility of all these plates, of all the possible combinations. It's mind-boggling how astronomically improbable it is to see these plates, let alone on these days.
And you certainly paid attention, that's for sure, to all of those things. So many people would have missed that.
Well, and it sounds like, to me, it sounds like what they're telling you, too, is that's how they're connecting to you personally, is through the vanity plates, because that's where you're tuned in, and that's where they're going to go. So whenever you have a question, you can probably just ask it every day and, wait for that plate to show up with your answer. I mean, it sounds like that's how they're communicating with you.
That's good, Janet.
I guess that's why I wanted to call in, because like everybody I talked to my sisters, I talked to my wife, I talked to my family about all this, and everybody's comes back with, oh, that's just a coincidence. And me and my my left side of the brain says it is a coincidence, but it's an incredibly, incredibly implausible coincidence.
Okay, and
then
maybe
when
do you stop calling it a coincidence? That's the other thing. That's the other question.
Yeah, exactly. And the other part of it is that in every time I see these plates, I've been mulling over certain decisions in my life. Do I want to go this way? Do I want to try to start this business? And every time it's just an affirmation to me that, it's. I can't put it together, but I guess my problem is that now after reading, listening to the book, Laura Lynn's book, and I'm trying to come up with something. It's just like the previous caller. It's just like when I want an affirmation. I mean, it just, and I know it's not about me, but it just doesn't come. I'm trying some really big decisions in my life, and I'm just seeking, I'm asking for help, and it seems like when I'm not, when I'm looking for it and asking for it, they're silent, and it's just
well, and maybe once you just maybe once you decide what you think your answer is, that's when you'll get your validation. Instead of you're looking for answers, maybe it's really up to you to decide what the answer is. You're the one here. You're the one here on Earth. You're the one that's living, where you have to decide in what direction you're moving. And maybe it's up to you deciding what that is. And once you decide, that's when you're going to see your vanity plate arrive with a validation to your answer. That could be possible. I mean, instead of saying, okay, I need an answer, show me the plate, then you're not really in the zone of where you need to be. You're asking, you can ask all you want. And if you're supposed to get an answer that way, it will come through. But in the meantime, you still need to figure out what your answer is. And then once your answer comes through, maybe when you let go, that's when it will come through, So
I'm not crazy.
Well, no. Well, if you're crazy, we're all crazy.
That's what everybody says. I'm crazy, and my own response is, just because I'm crazy doesn't mean I'm wrong. I'm just different than what you're thinking. It doesn't necessarily mean wrong.
That's a good point. And also about it was just a coincidence. I mean, we've heard that so much, but the point is it's a meaningful coincidence. And it's when these two dimensions merge that they come up with a very meaningful connection of points or ideas or whatever. And Jung worked with that a lot. And he said, if it's meaningful, we need to pay attention to it.
Right. And there's always balance. You got to keep that in mind that, it is wonderful when you're getting these answers all the time. And it is like when everything is flowing in the synchronicity or a coincidence, whatever you want, wherever direction it's going. But, you have to find the balance and still live your life and say, okay, you know what? Thank you. Let them know, give them a thank you when you get it. Like, okay, I hear you. I see it. I thank you. I appreciate it. And you go on with your life. And when there's big moments and you're like, oh my gosh, I need help, I need an answer. Sometimes you just have to find that quiet moment, sit down, do a little meditation or a little calming and go in and ask yourself, what is it I want from this? What am I looking for? And start trying to figure that out. And then when you come to that place of, I think this is where I want to go, chances are that's when you're going to see something right after that, kind of as a validation, or, if you see something that says wrong way, you might rethink and say, now why did I get that? And then, you could wonder, look into that, angle. But I think, when people aren't in it, like you're in this place where you're getting all this information, people aren't going to understand that. They are going to say, oh, you're a little bit out there. And you could be like, you know what, that's okay, because what's coming through is actually validating and comforting, which is really important. It's giving you comfort. It's validating where you're going in life. It's and like, when you were saying too, that you were feeling this calmness come over you, and sometimes that can happen and you can't understand why. You don't know why, with all this going on around you, all this, turmoil and all this sadness and grief, and you're in this place of calm, maybe there was a reason. There was definitely reasons for that. And it helped you get through and helped other people getting through the experience that they had to go through, and you were able to help them. And that's really important. So, keep that in mind too. So.
And yeah, go ahead. I just want to second Janet in what you said, because I think that, there are ways when we have some way that it's coming through quite well, and it's easy to want more of it, of course. But I do think always it goes back to developing our own ability to go inward and know it without necessarily an outer validation, although we love that, and that's good, and it's wonderful. But we need to always be thinking, I can develop this in myself and see where I'm led.
Right.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ed, for calling in. We appreciate it. Unfortunately, we're about out of time here, so, we're going to have to get going, but, we really are, I'm glad you called in, and I hope that, people see, the value in the moments that you've had and what you've experienced, and it helps them. I think that's what, like I said, why we're all here tonight is to kind of help each other, that, for other listeners to, hear a story and think, maybe my story isn't nuts. Maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe this really happened and I believe it, and I think that's what we're here for. Let people know this is normal,
We're in a culture that has been told for hundreds of years that is crazy to think something like that. And when we have the experience, we know that that's not true, that there's something else going on in the universe that they don't know about.
Yeah. So, all right. That's true.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. And Betty, it looks we're about out of time, Betty.
Yes,
any last words?
Pardon me?
I said, do you have any last words? We're about out of time.
No, I don't. I think we said it. So
okay. Then I will go ahead and end with our Mahayama prayer.
Hey, thank you.
Okay. May all beings everywhere with whom we are inseparably interconnected be fulfilled, awakened, liberated, and free. May there be peace in this world and throughout the entire universe. And may we all together complete the spiritual journey. And that is it. So thank you, everyone, for tonight. And we will look forward to talking to you next month.
Yes. Thank you, Janet. And good night.
Thanks, Betty. Good night.